We had been married for only 3 months. During that short time, my new wife, Jill, dragged me to at least 50 parties and nighttime entertainment events, or so it seemed to me. When I say dragged, I mean that I was like a hired escort, hired to drive her around, buy her and her friends drinks, bring her coat, and watch her while she flirted, danced, and had fun with other men. She danced with me, too, sometimes. But I had the feeling that while she was with me on the dance floor, while we were sitting at the bar sipping drinks, while we were talking, when she was actually talking to me, she was constantly looking around, scanning the crowd, and wondering who this man or that man was and who he was with. She wasn't cheating on me, I knew that. I was with her every minute. She rarely, if ever, disappeared from my sight for more than 10 minutes. But I felt more like an accessory than a newlywed husband. Frustration quickly became my middle name. I tried to talk to her about my feelings and needs, but she just brushed me off, usually saying that I was imagining things and just jealous because she was having such a good time. It hurt me deeply. I fell in love with Jill at first sight. She was more beautiful than her pictures. Wavy brown hair, full lips, a round butt, perfect breasts, and the most wonderful freckled smile I had ever seen. I still can't believe she chose me. Me? I'm short, 5 feet 5 inches. I still have hair, but I know it won't always be there. I'm a perfect fit for Nerd of the Month. And aside from an IQ of 165 and a very high income, I didn't think I had anything that could attract a beauty like Jill. We met at the annual company picnic. We both worked at Randolph Incorporated. She was the executive secretary to my boss, Howard Millen. I was a computer geek locked away in the clean rooms of the engineering department. For those who don't know, a clean room is where the most serious research and development takes place. We rarely see anyone from the company except our colleagues, and for the most part, we like it that way. Anyway, at the picnic, I accidentally spilled beer on Jill's new summer dress, and that was our unfortunate introduction. Of course, I apologized profusely and did everything I could short of getting down on my knees and begging God to forgive me for such sacrilege. She just laughed and asked me to get her a towel to dry herself off. I did. We talked, we started dating. And 6 months later, we were married. Tonight marks 3 months. We arrived at the club at 8 p.m. There were 2 other couples with us and 1 suitable girl. All the women were Jill's friends from work. We settled in, and the conversation was lively and loud. The men talked among themselves, the women among themselves. I was paid little attention, but it was polite. When we arrived, Jill and I danced once slowly and once quickly. Then the hunt began, as usual. The men started approaching our table and asking Jill to dance. She didn't turn anyone down. The others teased me, saying how popular Jill was. "Better keep an eye on your wife, Roger," or "Hey, Roger, have you seen your wife today?" Or, "Hey, buddy, aren't they dancing a little too close?" And so on. It was humiliating. I decided that today I wasn't going to put up with the usual nonsense. I looked around the table. "Harriet, would you like to dance?" I asked. Harriet Carter, the only unmarried woman in our group, looked at me as if I were joking. "Oh, Roger, I'm so tired. Not now, okay?" That cooled me off, especially when 5 minutes later another guy asked her to dance, and she immediately jumped up and ran out onto the dance floor with him. "Hi, honey," Jill said as she returned from the dance floor accompanied by a guy smiling like a possum. "Hi, can I ask you to dance?" I asked my wife as the man helped her back to her seat. Not right now, Roger. Maybe next dance, okay?" I nodded, feeling completely humiliated again. "Why don't you get us some drinks?" she said. I agreed and headed to the bar to get our drinks. When I returned, she was already dancing with someone else. The rest of our group was sitting at the table, sipping their drinks and joking around. It was around 11 p.m., and we were all feeling the effects of the alcohol. I remained silent, hoping for the best. I felt like a fifth wheel. Hell, I was a fifth wheel. Connie Rice looked at me. "Roger, come on, dance with me," she said. Her husband John looked up from his conversation with Mac Colby, but immediately turned back to him. I hadn't danced since I danced with Jill a few hours ago. Okay, I said, trying not to look desperate. She took my hand and pulled me to where Jill and her date were dancing closer together than she had danced with me. Connie pressed herself against me. "You're a big boy, aren't you?" Connie said, smiling. I blushed. Was all I could say. "Rod, don't let her get to you. She's always been a party girl. She'll calm down," Connie said. I looked at her. She realized she had put me in an awkward position. "I'm sorry, Raj. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I just noticed you seemed a little down," she said. "This is a charity event, isn't it, Connie?" I asked. "No, not at all, Raj. I believe you're a good guy." "I love dancing, and you're not a bad dancer, you know," she said. "Well, not as good as my wife, I suppose," I said, feeling sorry for myself. "Come on," said Connie. "Just have fun and forget about her for a while," said Connie. I just shrugged. A couple of minutes later, the dance ended. I thanked her, and we returned to the table. Connie resumed her conversation with Harriet and Claire Colby, another woman in our group. Her husband Michael and Mac, Connie's husband, were bringing them drinks. I was outside the circle of women's conversation. I couldn't hear what they were saying because of the music and the noise around the table. I wasn't sure, but I thought I noticed some sideways glances in my direction as they talked to each other just 5 feet away from me. I had an impulse. I decided to insist that Jill stop ignoring me. As soon as I made up my mind, Jill returned to the table. I was determined. "Jill, let's dance," I said, standing up to take her hand. I acted much more confident than I actually felt. She frowned. "Next dance," she said. "That's what you said last time," I replied, trying not to sound like a whiner. "That was over an hour ago. I want to dance." I couldn't believe it, but at that moment, the man who had sat her down at our table an hour earlier after dancing with her came over and asked her to dance again. She looked at me, frowned, and let him lead her onto the dance floor. All the women stared at me. I must have looked like a total loser in their eyes. I watched my wife, unable to believe what I was seeing. She looked back at me just as her partner pulled her close. I thought I saw concern in her eyes, but then decided I must have been mistaken. Well, I made up my mind. I was already standing up. I threw $50 on the table, turned around, and slowly walked out. I was halfway to the door when Connie caught up with me. "What are you doing, Rod?" she asked, knowing full well what I was doing. "I'm leaving. I don't belong here, it's obvious," I said without slowing down. "Rod, don't rush." I kept walking, and she disappeared into the crowd without saying a word. In the parking lot, I stopped, leaned against a lamppost, and cried. Okay, I felt sorry for myself. I had my reasons. I didn't want to go home, not yet. The pain and humiliation were too strong. I decided that someone else would give Jill a ride, maybe one of her many admirers. I had money. I decided to find a quiet piano bar. It was more my style. I smiled to myself. I knew just the place. On the way to the Gilded Lily, I weighed my options. We had been married for only 3 months, and I already believed in annulment. I loved her, but I couldn't stand the way she treated me. I had feelings, needs, and desires just like she did, but she obviously didn't see them, or, if she did, didn't care. Later, I learned that as soon as I left, the women abandoned their men and, when Jill returned to the table, dragged her into the ladies' room. "Jill, he's hurt. You've been treating him like shit for long enough. You're gonna lose him," Connie said. "No way. He loves me," Jill replied. "He'll be back soon. He has to drive me home." "You didn't see his face when he left," Claire said. "I thought he was going to cry." "He's not coming back tonight," said Harriet. "None of us helped him become part of our group. It's like he's only here to buy us drinks and do our bidding. At least Connie danced with him once. I was an idiot for turning him down. God, I regret it. I should have danced with him." "He's just Well, a bit of a nerd, said Jill. He's great at home, but in places like this. Then you shouldn't go to places like that, said Connie. You're married to this guy, and he's not a bad catch, by the way. Do you really think any of those jerks you were dancing with tonight are ever going to pay your bills or be able to do so? Jill looked at her friends. They had all been hanging out together for the last 3 years. They knew each other's needs, secrets, and dreams. They also knew where each of them had skeletons in their closets. For the first time, she began to worry about how she treated her husband. I looked around. The pianist was in a mellow mood, and his music reflected it. I found a place to hang out. It was midnight. I had 2 more hours before I had to do anything. I was drinking my second gin and tonic. "Hey, buy a girl a drink?" a voice behind me asked. I turned around and saw a tall brunette. She was wearing a black strapless dress that was too short. I guessed she was about 40, maybe 5 years older than me. She looked pretty good. "Sure," I replied. She smiled and sat down across from me. "I'm Rachel. What's your name?" she asked. "Roger." "Well, Roger, all alone on a Saturday night?" she asked. "Right now, yes, but I wasn't alone," I replied. She looked at me with surprise. "Don't ask," I said. She smiled and nodded, indicating that she understood. "Me too. My husband ditched me at a company party tonight. At least that's what he said. We had planned to spend the evening together, but he canceled at the last minute to do what he usually does when I'm not with him. I know it sounds weird," she said. I looked at her. "Me too," I said. "Well, in a way. My wife left me too. I was at the same place as her, but she ignored me and paid attention to other men. So here I am, sitting here crying into my gin and tonic." "Do you want to dance?" Rachel asked. I looked around. No one else was dancing, but there was a small dance floor next to the piano. "Yes, I would," I said, smiling. I held out my hand and invited her to dance. The song was melodic and slow, perfectly suited to my mood. She pressed herself against me and rested her head on my shoulder. It was wonderful. Time flew by. We talked, danced, and got to know each other. Someone turned off the lights. "Last call," said the bartender, looking at us. We were one of 3 couples still left in the bar. We exchanged phone numbers. Neither of us had any intention of using them at that moment. But then, I pulled up to our house around 3 a.m. I sat there for a few minutes, afraid to go in. But I had thought it through. I wasn't weak anymore. If the woman I married couldn't see what was going on, then it was over. For some reason, I felt good, safe. The house was dark. I headed for the kitchen. I wanted to heat up some water and make tea. Tea helps me think. I had already reached for the kettle when she spoke from the darkness. "You left me," she said. "No, you left me," I replied to the voice in the darkness. "Anyway, I don't want to talk about it." "Where did you go?" she asked. "What does it matter? You obviously didn't care whether I was there or not. That's why I decided to leave," I replied. "I'm sorry, I didn't understand." "Then you're the stupidest wife in town. You've been treating me like this almost since we got back from our honeymoon," I said. "You remember our honeymoon? You know what we did right after we supposedly got married?" "I'm really sorry." She stood up and came over to me. She hugged me around the neck. "I'll make it up to you. I promise," she said. "I've made my decision," I said. "No more parties, no more bars and dance halls, no more negotiations. Now it's your move. It's either me or your wild nights. Since you've decided to talk, tell me what you're going to do." I fell silent and waited for her answer. Her hands slipped from my shoulders, and I could feel that she was in conflict. "Maybe we should talk about this," she said. "No, you just answered that. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to get an annulment," I said. It was very dark, but now that my eyes had adjusted to the dim light, I could see her better. She looked scared. "Roger, I need you. Please don't do this. We can make it work. I know we can. I was just acting like a stupid girl. I didn't think about you and your needs. I can make it right, she said. No compromises, Jill. None. I'm sorry. I know you need, or believe you need, your party friends and the thrill of the chase. I don't need that. I'm leaving here tomorrow. No, better yet, tonight. I've had enough. I pushed her away. I went into our bedroom and turned on the light. I gathered my things. I threw them into the suitcase I had taken with me to the conference. She watched me from the doorway, sobbing. I'm sorry, she repeated. I won't do it again. I promise. I stopped, waiting for her to say something. You won't? I asked. I wasn't sure if she meant she would stop ignoring me or stop going to all those parties, but she knew what I meant. I'll be more attentive to your needs, she said. I smiled. I walked to the door. She grabbed my arm and tried to physically stop me. I put my bag on the floor and turned to her. She stood in front of me, her arms hanging down at her sides. Please give me a chance, she said. No parties ever, I said. I'll call you in a couple of days and we'll talk. Think about what I said. But if you have any idea how to get me to compromise, you can forget about it and forget about us. I'm serious. I pushed her away and left. I knew we needed to talk when I calmed down. But I was adamant about the parties. It was over, at least for me. My mother may have raised an idiot, but she certainly didn't raise a fool. I drove around for a while and found a motel that looked shabby enough to spend the night. I went in, paid, and got the key. The room smelled like a sex factory. But to be honest, I didn't care. I flopped down on the bed and fell asleep within minutes. The next morning, I woke up to bright sunlight streaming through the cracks between the curtains. It was 9 a.m. The adventures of the previous night came flooding back. My head and stomach were rebelling. I headed for the shower. I undressed, turned on the hot water, and stepped under the stream. God, how much better I felt when the hot water washed away the dirt, sweat, and tears of the previous night. I was drying myself with a towel when my cell phone rang. I knew who it was. I answered. Yes. I remember exactly what I said. No. Then go to hell. I hung up. She really had the nerve to tell me I should be reasonable, but I wasn't being reasonable. 2 minutes later, the phone rang again. I ignored it. I was hungry. I walked to the IHOP on the corner. I believed the walk would do me good. I was eating and enjoying my strawberry shortcake when a woman sat down across from me. Rachel. Hi. I'm just as surprised as you are. My husband and I ate here almost every Saturday morning, or at least we used to, she said. But this morning, I'm alone. This is my first time here, I replied. I spent the night at a motel over there. I nodded toward the distant, still glowing vacancy sign. Oh, I'm sorry, she said. This must be hard for you. I'll leave if you want. I mean, if you need to be alone. No, I don't mind the company. So what are you doing today? I asked. Nothing. When my husband came home last night at 3 a.m., I was too tired to argue with him, so I just pretended to be asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, he was already packing the car to go golfing. I suggested he come here, but he refused. To be honest, Roger, I'm furious. Well, then I guess we'll be clubbing together, I said, laughing. Listen, if I'm overstepping the mark, just let me know. I'd like to spend the day with you. You're well-dressed, I'm clean, I took a shower and, well, I'm angry too. And I've decided I'm not going to put up with it anymore, so let's do it. She seemed to consider it. Yes, damn it. Why not? And if our spouses don't like it, well, they can go to hell. I like the way you think, I said and laughed again. It was a wonderful day. The best day of my marriage. We went to the beach, left our shoes in the car, and walked a mile through the sand. A wave crashed over us when we weren't looking, and we nearly died from laughter, from the cold, and from nature itself. We fell on our backs and started kicking each other's toes. Giving in to the impulse, I pulled her toward me and kissed her gently. She frowned, then smiled and kissed me back. Her tongue fought with mine. I believed she had won the duel. We got up, dusted ourselves off, and returned to the car. We didn't have any particular plans, so I just drove. It was around 1 p.m. I pulled into a taco place with sidewalk tables. We ordered, ate, talked, and laughed. God, I believed her husband must be either the first on the list of biggest jerks or the dumbest man in the Western Hemisphere. We spent the rest of the day window shopping downtown. I've lived in the suburbs my whole life and never gone shopping downtown. It was an interesting experience. It was getting late. I decided to make my move. Rachel, I'm not going home tonight, but if you want, I'll drive you to your car and you can go home if you want. She took my chin in both hands and looked me in the eyes. I want to go to your cheap room and have some fun. And then I want to go listen to some good music and maybe dance. Unless, of course, I'm too tired after you're done with me. But your husband? What about your wife? She interrupted me. Let's do it, I said. We drove a few miles to my motel and went inside. We connected almost immediately. We fell onto the king-size bed. I waited for her to get used to it, then started pushing and pulling. After only a few minutes, I came inside her, and she bucked like a wild stallion, trying to squeeze everything she could out of me. We collapsed on the floor. We slept for a while. It was 9 p.m. when she woke up and hit me on the arm. I woke up with a start. Let's take a shower and go, she said. We went to the Gilded Lily, the place where we had met. It was Saturday night and the place was packed. We had to sit at the bar until a table for two became available. Jazz music from the 1930s and 1940s was playing, my favorite. We learned that the pianist's name was Sam. How strange. I even mustered up the courage to ask him to play As Time Goes By, and, no doubt, thanks to the $10 bill I slipped into the piano case, he agreed. Rachel and I danced to the melody. In those hours, we didn't think about our thoughtless spouses. I was sure that sooner or later they would return with a vengeance, but to be honest, I didn't care. On Sunday, after I dropped Rachel off, I called Jill. She stayed the night at my place. I told Rachel to call me on my cell if she needed help. She knew what I meant. I believed her angry husband might want to do something unacceptable to her. He deserved everything he got for taking her for granted. I felt the same way about Jill. My call to Jill was brief. I told her I would be home by noon and would either be packing the rest of my things in preparation for annulment or divorce, depending on what she had to say, or she would have something to tell me that I wanted to hear. She was depressed, but said she understood. I drove up to the house, parked, and went inside. I was surprised to see Connie Rice sitting next to Jill on the couch. I didn't like it. I immediately believed that they had gotten together to gang up on me. Well, if that was the case, she had just lost her chance, if it mattered to her at all. "Hi, Raj," Connie said. Jill stood up and walked over to me, expecting a kiss to make up. I pushed her away. "Honey," she started. "Wait," I said, "until we figure out what's going on." "Okay," she said quietly. I could see she was upset. I felt like I knew what was coming next. I was right. Believe it or not, until that moment, I hadn't noticed what they were wearing. They looked gorgeous. Short summer dresses in pastel colors, their hair styled in identical ponytails, their makeup perfect. Jill was wearing high heels, Connie flat shoes, but both looked gorgeous. I went into the kitchen. They looked at me in surprise as I walked past. I poured myself a cup of coffee from the not-quite-empty coffee pot. I returned. They both sighed with relief. "Honey?" "You know what to do, Jill," I said, chuckling at my rhyming response. "Rod, can I ask you something?" Connie said. I didn't know how much Jill had told her about my ultimatum, but I was pretty sure she knew everything. "Okay," I said. "I guess so." "You told Jill no more parties, bars, or anything like that, right?" Yes, I replied. Does that mean no leaving the house ever again, may I ask? No. It means no going to the places you've been taking me for the last few months. Okay, and where can Jill go if I may ask? Good jazz clubs, like the one I went to last night and the night before, after I left you at Kitty Cat. Other places, just not places where she can dance with different men if she wants to. You both know what I mean, Connie. And while we're on the subject, have you lost your voice, Jill? No, I'm just afraid that if I say the wrong thing, ask the wrong question, or do the wrong thing, you'll leave me, Jill replied. I love you, Roger. I just can't lose you. I just can't. I thought you were crazy, but I understand why you're doing this. Anyway, that's why I asked Connie to help me, not to set you up. It's simple, very simple. No more parties like you're used to, I said. Rod, Jill can still see us. I mean our friends. If we go with you to your places, can we join in? That was a problem I hadn't thought of. I fell silent. Actually, I liked Connie. The others weren't bad people either. As far as I knew, neither Mac nor Michael had been flirting with my wife. They danced with her, but not often and not too closely. Yes, I think that will be fine. But, and this is very important, if there is even the slightest pressure on me to give in and agree to go to one of the old places, I will resign immediately, without comment or discussion. I hope I've made myself clear. There will be no negotiations on this matter. So, Jill, what have you decided? She nodded in agreement. I need to hear that, I said. No more parties like before, she said. She rushed over and hugged me around the shoulders. I hugged her back. Connie turned away as Jill and I kissed. I'll tell the others, Connie said. And she left. I suppressed the urge to tell Jill about Rachel. I didn't feel guilty about the time I'd spent with her, but I didn't see any point in complicating things. To be honest, I didn't care whether Jill knew or not, but at that moment, it didn't matter that she didn't. About a week later, I got a call on my cell phone while I was at work. It was Rachel. Apparently, her night with me had really shaken up her husband. He had even canceled his golf game for the following Saturday. They were going to the beach to dig through trash. A damn good idea, I thought. I laughed as she spoke. She gave me an idea. I suggested it to her over the phone. She agreed. On Saturday, Rachel and I were at the beach. Another couple approached us, and we waved at them. I pulled Jill toward me and kissed her almost right in front of them. Rachel did the same with her husband. We all laughed, supposedly complete strangers. We chatted for a minute. Jill, oddly enough, took the initiative. She suggested we go to a small sidewalk cafe 100 yards away and have lunch together. Rachel immediately agreed, and we two men were whisked away by our wives. As it happened, Rachel and her husband Frank became part of our group. They fit in perfectly. I grew fond of Frank. He, Rachel, Jill, and I became friends who had barbecues at each other's houses. Connie and the others still enjoy themselves separately from us, but at least once a month we all get together. At first, it was exclusively at the Gilded Lily, but then we started going to other similar establishments. On rare occasions, Jill was still asked to dance, but now she was very selective and made sure that I was her number one in every way. As for Rachel and me, we became close, but close as friends, not lovers. I think we each saw the other as a lifeline. We had no intention of repeating our forbidden relationship, but the possibility always remained if our partners betrayed one of us or both of us. But if that had happened, it would have been the beginning of another story, wouldn't it?